right. What's up, everyone? We are on our weekly webinar, and we're having some technical difficulties, but we were able to get it all worked out. I'm joined with Clark James. He's one of our senior AppSheet developers, and we are going to be talking about today building a work order app. So these weekly webinars will go over just some cool features and what's possible with AppSheet. So let's get right into it. The next part is we're going to be talking about a little bit about our company, Crew Technologies. So how we like to do things here at Crew Technologies is we have our expert AppSheet instructors and developers. We have on-demand content, bootcamp recordings, and project files. So this is all available at appsheettraining.com, and you can sign up for these courses over there. And then these are a few of the highlight featured courses we have available at Crew Technologies, or I'm sorry, at AppSheet Training, which is powered by Crew Technologies. We have an on-demand path and our live boot camps. So you can find more information about this if you head over to our website. All right, let's get into the agenda. So first part of our webinar, we're going to be going over feature updates, and then we'll go over a use case guide for our work order app. We'll go over key features of the app, and then we'll try to see how we can build a work order app with AppSheet. Okay, so our feature updates, this is like the latest features that have been added from AppSheet. So they updated how you can transfer the app. And this is found in their feature release notes section on the AppSheet community page. So they said that you can no longer transfer apps through another author using their email and ID. Instead, a co-author must request a transfer, and then it is approved by the author. So you can find more information about that using this link here. And these slides will be added to the YouTube description, and you can have access to all the links on this slide as well. And then next, we have our preview program, AppSheet's preview program. And this is where you can preview new features that are added. So they have a table view where you can freeze the first column. And then they have the chart editor feature. So this is getting an upgrade from the chart editor that's currently used in AppSheet. And then you have detail views with rich text formatting. All right. Okay, so let's get into our use case guide for our work order app. All right, so an outdated business process for work order apps or work orders in general might be that an employee fills out a paper form on site, and then the employee would submit the paperwork at the end of the business day. And then that data is processed by admin or other employees at the company, and then emailed for invoicing or other billing purposes to the customer. So what we want to do is recreate this process to be automated, save this company some time and energy to spend time doing the things that they love. All right, so our key features of this app, our work order app is going to digitize this current business process. It's going to update records on site. So an employee can go visit whatever job site they need to go to. So in our use case, we have Apple, Sony, and Tesla. And so we can go to those work sites, take down what needs to be fixed or updated at those different job sites, and then it'll automatically mark it as incomplete. And then when we hit the complete button, it will send an automated invoice to the client. All right, so now this is the main part of the webinar. Let's look at how we can build our work order app. Okay, so the first step that we're going to do is organize our Google Sheets data sets. So here we can see that we have our client table, and we like to organize our data sets with tabular data structure. You can find out more about how to organize data this way by signing up for our AppSheet Essentials bootcamp, and starting next week. So the way we organize our data for clients is we have an ID column first, and then we have our business name, and then first name, last name, and then the client email. So this would be like the point of contact so that we can send our email automation. All right, and then the next table that we're going to look at is our technician table. So this is like our employees who will be going out and filling out these work order reports. And so we have an email column. This will be our key column for the technician table. And then we have first name and last name. And keep that table pretty simple. Next, we have our work order line item table. So this is like the different items that will be shown for each specific work order. So we have an ID column again for this table. And then we have a foreign key right here, the work order ID. And this is taking information from the work order table and putting it in here. And then we have our inventory item, and we have the value, the quantity, and then the total. All right. And then next, we have our child table called work orders. And so this is a child table because the client ID right here is a reference to the client table. And then the assigned technician column here is also another reference to the technician table. And so the way we set this one up is we'll have our ID column just like the other ones did, and then we'll input the fields that we want for the form. So we have a date column, a status if it's incomplete or if it's complete, and then we'll have the client ID so we can make sure that we send that automated email to the client. And then we have a notes table here as to what we're going to be updating. And then we have the assigned technician, and then this order trigger. This was going to be used for this webinar, but to keep things simple, we're just going to use the status column to send the email automation. And then if you want to learn more about the order trigger, you can join us for our webinar next week. We'll be talking a little bit more about expressions. So let's go ahead and set this up in AppSheet. So from there, we'll start customizing our app inside of AppSheet. And the way we do that is we'll go to data, tables, and then start adding all the tables that we created inside of AppSheet. Or I'm sorry, inside of our Google Sheets data sets. All right. So let me go ahead and show you guys what this app looks like. Got to see where my tabs are. 1 second. Okay, so here's our, oh, I think I was in the right spot. Okay, here's our work order app. Okay, so our first view here, we have the client view, and this just shows the different clients that we have. And then down here, you can see the related work order line items that are for this client, if you click into there. And then this view is a work order view, and we can just see incomplete work orders and complete work orders. And then you can click into each of those and either mark those specific work order line items as incomplete or complete. And then finally, we have our dashboard view over here. And this one is dynamic. So we can click on each of these different views and see the status and send the automation by simply clicking on complete. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at how this is set up inside of AppSheet. Okay, so this is the view of the AppSheet editor, and we're in the data tab with tables. And let's just take a look at some of our data sets in here. All right. Okay, so the client table, we can see the different column types for this table right here. And ID, we usually set to text, and then we make sure it has the initial value of unique ID. Another thing that we usually do is hide the show column for IDs, just to give the app a nice user interface. And so business name is good to keep as name, first name, name, last name, name, and then client email will be email. And then AppSheet creates this computed name virtual column for us so that we can see the first name and last name together. All right, that table looks great. Next, we're looking at the technician table. Okay, so this one's kind of similar to the client table. We just have the email, first name and last name is good. And then AppSheet set up the computed name column for us, and then the related work orders for us as well. Okay, so the main two tables we'll be working from are the work order table and the work order line item tables. So this is where we start relating the data together. So we have our ID column, our date column, and then the status column is an enum, which allows users to select between incomplete and complete. And so this is kind of the first stage of setting up that email automation. All right, moving on from there, we have our client ID. And remember, this is our foreign key. And we usually use this naming convention, the table name with ID, to notify us that this is a reference column. And so the reference column is the client table. And so we know that from this naming convention we set up in our Google Sheets data set. So we're referencing the client table. That looks good. And then our notes, we just kept that as text. One thing that we could update is move this to long text. And then we'll save that. All right. And then our assigned technician is a ref. And this one is a reference to the technician table. And so that's set up for us. And then, like I said, the order trigger column, that's something that we'll talk about later on when we're moving on into the expressions. And then you can take a deep dive into expressions by taking our expression mastery course. And that one's coming up later this month. Okay, and then we created a virtual column right here. This one's also built with an expression that it sums the total of the related work order line items to this total column that we created. And then that gives us this calculation right here. Let's see if I can find it. So right here, work order total, $800. So it's summing all the related work order line items up for us right there. All right, now let's look at our work order line item setup. Okay, so here we have our work order ID. And again, this is using that naming convention that we recommend by naming your table and the ID column of that table. And we set the column type to type ref. And our source table is the work order table. Now this one's special because it's part of this table, and that's how we can input more work orders or more work order line items to a client's view. So like right here, we have this work order and we need to add some more work for him. It's incomplete, can write some notes and then assign the technician. And we can then create this new work order line item right here. And then it'll be drywall, price will be $100. And then quantity will just be 2. And so then it sums up the total for us. And then we can click save. And there we go. We added a new work order line item right there. And when we save it, it'll update that field for us. Awesome. All right, so now we have a new work order created and the values there for us as well. Okay, let's keep on moving through. And so let's see. So this table looks set up and ready to go. All right, moving on, let's look at our UX views. So for this app, I decided that we needed 3 primary views. We needed a client view, a dashboard view where we can see everything, and then a work order view just to see which work orders are complete and incomplete. Okay, so the way you set those up is pretty simple. You just view name, you name it what you want. I named this one client view. And then I like deck views. They tend to display this kind of data really well for your apps. And then I decided to sort by the business name column. And then you can set up your primary headers, secondary headers, and then summary column headers here. And then that's about all we did for that. If you wanted to update the icon, you can do so here. And I just chose this little guy for the icon. All right. If you haven't used dashboard views before, this view type lets you add multiple entries of other view types. So for this view, this is our dashboard view here. We have the 3 different views that we created, and we toggled this little selector on. So that way, when you click this, it doesn't take you inside the view. It's just allowing you to switch between the different views and then display that data so that users can easily mark their work order status as complete. And so if we do that, we send complete, it will send that automated email. And we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. Okay, next, behavior. These are all system behaviors right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hide those. This one is, like I said earlier, tied to that order trigger. So if you want more information about how to set up an order trigger, we'll talk about that more next week. Also recommend signing up for that expression mastery course to get more information about this. So let's go ahead and see how to set up an automation in AppSheet. I'm gonna go back over to my slides. Okay, so step 1 for setting up your automations is you're gonna wanna go to the automations tab to set that up. And you'll go to automations, add a new bot, and then I named this bot invoice complete bot. The first one I created was a trigger bot. And so that's why you see this one disabled here. So next step, once you name it, you're going to click on this little part right here. And then our bot, whoops. Let's see. Went through my slides. Okay, our bot is going to be triggered on a data change. And then I chose to make it all changes. And then it's just going to check this condition. If the status equals complete, then it'll send that email to the client, notifying them that their work order has been completed and the invoice is ready for them. And so the table that it's going to be run from is the work order table. Okay, so next you're going to set up your process. And one thing that happens to me a lot is I'll be setting up these automations and this process will be on a different table, either because I copied from another automation or something. And that's one like troubleshoot thing that you can try if your automations aren't working. You can make sure that the process is connected to the right table. And so you just go ahead and click on the work order table, making sure that it's all connected to the same table. And then next you can run this task. And then we're going to run the task of sending an email to the customer. All right. And so then this is a look at how to set up that task and send the email. So what we do from here is we're going to send an email, and then the task name is going to be send email to customers. We're going to send it from the work order table. And then we're not using a dynamic email, but dynamic emails are one of my favorite kinds of emails with AppSheet. So maybe we'll talk about that later too. Okay, next, this to column, this is who the email is going to be sent to. So remember our column structure, we set up the client ID in the work order table. And then this little dot right here is telling AppSheet, I want you to go into the client table and grab the client email. So that way it can send the email to the client, or else it would just see this client ID and just have a number or a unique ID. So this allows us to go into the client table and receive that client email address. All right, so that's looks good. And so next we just have our email subject. I just named it work order invoice. And then our email body, this is some template expressions here that we'll take a look at. And then the from display, AST invoice, and then our pre-header is work order invoice for the client. And so again, we're using that dereference right here, this little dot, and it goes from the client table or from the work order table, the client ID, into the client table, and it pulls the business name for that client. All right, so this is where we can start setting up the template. So let's set up and customize the email attachment. Okay, so first step, you're going to click on create in the automation, and then we'll view that. Once we view it, your Google Doc will look something like this. It'll say just a very generic invoice template that AppSheet makes. But what we like to do is organize this for our branding, and then just make it a little bit more customizable. So let's take a look at how we updated it. So we just added our AppSheet training branding, and then we used kind of the same fields. So these are columns, and these little carrots right here is how you can write AppSheet expressions into Google Docs. And then we just organize the data a little bit better. And then once the email automation is sent, your data will be displayed like this, so that clients can easily see what the amount is owed, and they can pay that amount and have a nice clean invoice document in their inbox. All right, so let's look at that inside the AppSheet editor. Okay, so here we have the automation set up, and first we have the invoice complete bot, and I just went to automation bots and then invoice complete bot. I named it. The event, like I said earlier, is a data change. It's all changes, and then it's the work order, and we set the status to complete. So that part's set up. And then next, we're going to run this process, and it's going to send an email. So we selected the email from the work order table. And then in the to column, we've got the client ID sent to the client email. And then we also put the assigned technician in there too, just so that they could have a copy. And then our email content. This is our work order invoice for that business. And then the email body, take a look at what it looks like over here. It's client ID and then computed name. And then this is the invoice for the work order we did for you. All right. And then the from display, and then another template expression for the pre-header. All right. And then there's the AppSheet template right there. And it's an invoice for, and that's what AppSheet will name that template. All right. And that's looking good. Okay. All right. It looks like I have some messages in the chat. Is that from people in the community, Clark? Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left. Okay, let me jump back over here to my slides. There we go. Okay, and then just to demo that the automation is working, we're gonna find a let's find a client that hasn't had a completed invoice yet. Let's see. Right here. How about this one? Okay, we'll just change his status to incomplete and then let it sync. And then we'll update it back to complete. All right. And then back over here, we can see that our email automation was triggered. And these are some earlier automations that I ran, but just to show you, it has the, I'm sorry, the client's name and then the work that we did for their company. And so it writes it in your Google Doc and attaches it as an email, and then for the amount that was owed. All right. Okay. And so our email automation has been set up, and let's review. So what we were tasked to do was to take a work order business process that was all paper-based, and employees were having to go to the job site, write all the information down on a paper form. After they wrote it down on the paper form, they had to go back to the office, give it to either an admin or input the data themselves. And then once the data was entered, then they had to create an invoice and fill out all that paperwork and then send that invoice to the client. With AppSheet, we took down the job requirements at the site. We were able to complete the job. And then with the click of a button, we just marked it as complete and it sent the invoice to the client and it was ready to go. So that's how we can quickly create an AppSheet automation and a work order app using AppSheet. All right. So what you can do next is we'd like to connect. You can sign up for a free tech talk where we can help create these same solutions for your company or for your use case. And these are great ways where we can talk about the different things that you're working on, your different business processes, and see how AppSheet can help optimize those business processes and create quick solutions for your different business operations. All right. So I think that concludes our work order webinar. Were there any questions, Clark?
We had a couple questions. I did get those answered for us, I believe.
Nice.
If you have any more questions, please feel free to jump in the chat. I also know that we do have a coupon code for our boot camps. It is 10% off.
All right.
So I can add that onto the slide.
Sweet.
But it should just be weekly webinar 10.
Nice.
So if you are interested in those, you'll get to see my face more than you have in this current webinar. Or you get to work with a couple of our other instructors, Justin, Cameron. So we're all pretty proficient, you could say, with AppSheet, as well as some data science stuff. So if you do need that assistance, we can help. We'd love to help you out. So Let me check, see if there's any more questions. I'm not seeing any. So yeah, Austin, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the AppSheet training webinar. Again, if you're interested in taking any of our courses, that can be found at appsheettraining.com. And then feel free to sign up for a tech talk and we can discuss your specific use case and create a custom use case guide for you.
All right.
All right.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Austin, for
Yeah.
hosting this up.
Mhm.
We will be trying to do this every week, from my understanding.
Yes.
So we should be bringing these back. Thank you for everyone who's been supporting us
Mhm.
since we used to do these webinars.
Mhm.
We are pretty excited to be
Yeah.
bringing these back to you guys.
Yeah.
So, and then we will be having the slides and the sample app in the description of this video. So if you need that, you can find that there.
Sweet.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thanks again, guys, and
Mhm.
we'll catch you next week. We might change the time. We'll see.
Mhm.
And if you guys prefer a different time, feel free to shoot us an email. You
Mhm.
can email Austin at austin@crewtech.com. And yeah, we'd love to help you out. So y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.